brake on the Malibu. I normally would be daily driving the car, but I stopped doing that because the smoke out of the exhaust was getting more frequent and thicker. And I was trying to avoid thinking about it, and I thought, the carb's not tuned right. But after I released my video covering Hot Rod Power Tour, I had a bunch of people comment on the video that they were on Power Tour, and when they were behind me that it was burning a lot of oil. And I said, there's no way. It doesn't burn oil. You guys are silly. Bunch of drama queens. It's burning oil. So, because the engine was just built like 6 years ago, me and the engine builder, aka my dad, think that there's no way it could be rings. And the under hood fire would lead me to believe that the heat distorted valve seals. That's the number one thing I'm thinking it is valve seals. And if it's not valve seals, I don't know what it would be. I guess it could be a couple different things. Head gasket, or maybe would have been faulty rings, but I don't know. I think it's safe to say that's valve seals. So it's currently sitting outside in the weather with a dead battery. I had to use the garage for another project. I had to tinker around on my four-wheeler. So I'm gonna jump the battery and then pull it inside and start taking the plugs out and looking at them and seeing where the majority of the oil is. I'm going to guess probably back passenger side is where most of the fire was whenever I had the underhood fire. So that's probably where the issue is, but I'm gonna get it jumped and get it pulled inside. So the real trick here is going to be finding a pin in my toolbox that actually works. But, alright, I've got this old Haynes manual that I got for free from a friend at a swap meet who had a box of books that they were getting rid of. So I'm just going to put up here Malibu, and I'm putting today's date, which is November 12th, 2021, and I'm gonna write out my plug numbers. So 1, 3, 5, 7, and 2, 4, 6, 8. On this paper, I'm going to pull each plug out and inspect the plug and read it and kind of see if it's oily, and also just kind of make a mental note of anything else that I see on there. And I'm guessing, like I said before, that the back passenger side, so probably 6 and 8, are going to be the oiliest if my assumptions are correct, that the fire being focused on, like, the heat of the fire was back there, those valve seals being the ones that are damaged. Maybe even 4. I mean, it could be all of them on the passenger side. I don't know. But I'm going to start with number 1. Just for simplicity, I'm going to go 1, 3, 5, 7, and then 2, 4, 6, 8. Number 1, looks like it may have a little bit of oil, but honestly, it just looks a little rich, possibly. I may have forgot to mention that I also am going to do a compression test, and that is why I'm writing down all the cylinder numbers. I'm no expert on reading plugs. Everything I've learned on reading plugs, I've pretty much learned from Derek on Vice Grip Garage, and some just trial and error type of stuff over my years of changing plugs on vehicles and etc., etc. Number 3, definitely oily. Number 5, a tiny bit oily. Not terrible. Seven's oily. Okay. Ow. So I'm hooked up on cylinder number 1, and I've got the carburetor wide open. My distributor is completely unplugged. So we'll probably need the battery charger on jump, but we'll try it without first. I'm going to unhook the fuel pump too. Am I? All right, here we go. .150 psi on number 1. And I gotta hook the battery charger up. $150. Alright. I'm going to pop the valve cover off on the driver's side real quick. Just to have a look around. See if anything really just grabs my attention. Tucker, shut up! I don't really know what I expected to see, but I'm certainly not seeing anything I think it's safe to say you're not going to see much until you take the valve spring off and pull the seal out. So, I'm going to put the valve cover back on temporarily and start calling parts stores for valve seals and a valve spring compressor of some sort. The kind of valve spring compressor you can use from up here. You know what I'm trying to say. Number 2 looks pretty darn good. Maybe just a little bit oily. Number 4. Not too bad. Maybe just the slightest bit. I don't know. That looks pretty good. Number 6. is pretty oily. Number 8. Number 8's not terrible. It may be just a tiny bit oily, but not too bad. Alright, here we go. (150 psi) on number 1. (150). (150) on 5. Whew, it's hard on the belly. (150) on 7. Luckily, all the ones on the passenger side are just really, really hard to get to. (165) on number 2. (150) on number 4. (150) on number 6. (150) on number 8. I think it's safe to say you're not going to see much until you take the valve spring off and pull the seal out. So, I'm going to put the valve cover back on temporarily and start calling parts stores for valve seals and a valve spring compressor of some sort. The kind of valve spring compressor you can use from up here. You know what I'm trying to say. Well, I got the valve seals right here. Those are the well, those are one of them, and these are the other ones. I'm thinking that these are probably intake and these are probably exhaust, but whenever I get torn into it, I'll see for sure. And then I've got this tool that I rented from O'Reilly. I decided to just rent this one because it's not built the way I would like it to be built, so I'm gonna buy a better quality one at some point. And the dog is out here barking at critters already, so we're off to a great start there. Oh, he sees a cat. I also see the cat, so I understand why he's worked up. Also, I've got the air compressor out here. I decided to put the air compressor outside because I've got plenty of air hose, and that way I don't have to listen to it right here in my ear. And it's nice enough outside to just leave it out there for now. I mean, the sky is looking kind of black and cloudy over there, so I'll be keeping a close eye on it, but I think maybe the weather's supposed to stay north of us. Alright, so I'm gonna stick you guys in here to watch while I do the passenger side, because it's gonna be really difficult getting in and around all of that stuff. So I'm gonna do the passenger side first, so that I've got the hard stuff out of the way. And then after I've got the hang of it, I will take you off time lapse and show you up close and personal how to do some over here, because this will be really nice and open and easy to get to, and I'll be able to get the camera in there and really show you guys what I'm doing. And I'm hoping that maybe somebody gets some useful knowledge out of this if you ever need to do valve seals. I don't know, maybe no one will get any use out of it, but I'm gonna show you how to do it anyway. Okay, so I got one cylinder done, but I had to stop because I'm confused. So this is one of the seals, the valve stem seals that the parts store sold me, and this is the other. they said that one is for the intake and one is for the exhaust. Well, I got the first cylinder done, but the problem was both valves on the first cylinder had this style. So I went ahead and put that back on and put it back together. And I'm going to call my mechanic and talk to him and see, A, if he has an inclination as to why someone would have advised my dad 6 years ago to run this style seal on both valves, or if he thinks maybe it was an accident and maybe the reason I'm having valve seal issues is because I need these on one or the other. I don't know. By the time this video comes out, I will have figured out the issue, decided what to do about it, and moved forward, and the car will be driving again. But drop in the comments your information on whether I should be running one of these and one of these, or if both of these are fine, or I don't know. Tell me, comment stuff and tell me things. Okay, so I got another bag of these to go along with the ones I already had, because I talked to my mechanic and he said the blue ones are the way to go. So I'm gonna get the air compressor hooked back up and get the camera set up and get back at it, and shouldn't take me but an hour. Well, I mean, pretty straightforward, easy to do. Alright, I gotta share a learning moment with you guys because they're important and you never stop learning in life. I watched a video on doing these valve seals, and I noticed in the video the guy put the valve stem O-ring on after he slipped the spring down over the valve stem and the new seal, and I was like, okay, didn't think much of it. Did that first cylinder yesterday and then had the night to ponder things and come back fresh today, and I did the second cylinder, which I'm not talking in numerical order like firing order, but I did the second cylinder that I had done, which was the one I did this one, and I circled back to this one because I thought it's a lot easier to put these O-rings on before you slide the valve spring down over the valve stem. And I did that, and I started putting one of these back together on this cylinder, and I got to thinking that was almost too easy, and I wonder if when I push that valve spring down, I'm actually pushing that O-ring down and not even knowing it. And I was suspicious, so I tested it on that cylinder that I was working on, and that's exactly what happened. When I pushed the valve spring down over it, the O-ring slid down. So I went back to the one that I did yesterday, took this one off. Yep, the O-ring had slid down, so I put it on the correct way. And then I took this one off, and yep, the O-ring had slid down. You can see the O-ring should be up in this groove right here, and it was down all the way against the blue seal. So I've done a lot of reading online, and some engine builders say that O-ring's pointless. Well, when I took this engine apart, or whenever I started tearing into this, there were no O-rings. So my dad evidently was advised by the person that was giving him information when he was building this engine. They must have advised him, don't mess with those O-rings. Or maybe he knew from past experience. No matter what the deal was, I'm putting the O-rings back on upon doing this valve stem seal installation, because my mechanic that I talked to about engine stuff, well, anything really, anyway, he said that he has always put those O-rings on, and he's been hot rodding and building engines for as long as I've been alive, so I think he's probably got it figured out. Longer than I've been alive, probably. So it's a little bit slow going today because I was fighting getting the engine to quit turning over. Had to end up putting the plugs back in, which I should have known, but I just didn't even think about it because I got lucky on that first cylinder, and no plugs in the engine. That first cylinder held 110 psi without spinning the engine over, so it must have just been perfectly landed. I mean, just absolutely perfect as far as the position of all the pistons and the crank and stuff, where it had no, or it had couldn't easily turn. I don't know. So I'm gonna finish this passenger side, and then I'll show you guys some more stuff on the driver's side where you can see, because you can't see anything on the passenger side. There's too many hoses and wires. Okay, so I do this in a way that some may say is not safe or less than ideal, but it's how I do it, and it works. So I'm going to show you how to tell when both of your valves are shut and that cylinder is at top dead center. That way you have the best chance of compressing the air, assuming you've got all your spark plugs in to kind of help the rest of the engine have compression, yada yada yada. So I have this screwdriver that has a curve in it. Can you see how that's got a curve in it? You don't have to have a screwdriver that has a curve in it. I just happen to, that's what I'm using. So right there you can see the hole for the spark plug. So what I do is I take my screwdriver and I poke it carefully in that hole, and I am met by a wall, so to speak. It stops going in, and you can press it a little bit and it definitely stops going in. This particular screwdriver, I can spin it 180 degrees and it'll go a little bit further, but it still stops. What that's stopping on is the head of the piston. It is physically stopped by the head of the piston. So that means that piston is at top dead center or pretty darn close. So if you come up top here, you see that our valves, if my light would just stay, okay, there, you can see that the valves are both closed. So I'm going to set you guys, where do you want to sit? I'm gonna set you right there. And odds are when I'm editing this later, I'll be able to see that you can't see anything at all. So I take my piece of hose with the spark plug size here and an air compressor, air chuck fitting quick connect thing there, and I thread it into the spark plug hole. And I have been just getting these as tight as I can by hand. And they've been sealing up just fine because there is an O-ring on the end of this particular fitting. So I'm going to start putting the air to it, and I'm just going to watch the accessories on the front of the engine and see if it starts spinning. And it did not start spinning. So it's holding. That means that this cylinder is now compressed to about 100 or 110 psi, and these valves are shut, so I can take the rocker and rocker nuts off, and I can compress the springs and lift the springs off there, and the valves are held up against the valve seats by that compressed air that's in there. I'm on the last cylinder, so I've only got those two right there left to do, and I am super excited. And I'm gonna get you guys jammed in here up close and personal, and I'm gonna run you through I'm gonna run you through the intake and moderate it the whole time and tell you exactly what I'm doing and how to do it. And then I'm going to run you through the second one in real time, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to do it at the speed that I would be doing it if I weren't filming. And hopefully that puts some perspective on it for anybody that is watching this to learn anything. But I've already got my cylinder at top dead center, and we're on number 1, and it was easy on this one because I could bring the mark around on the harmonic balancer, and I already put the air chuck in there and pressurized it and checked and make sure it's not going to leak, and it does not leak or move the engine over. So here we go. I'm going to get you jammed in here somehow. I think I tested it a second ago, and it was looking like maybe somewhere right around here is going to be good. You guys got any opinions on the matter? I don't know. It looks like it's going to do it. Pretty decent anyway. How many times do you think I'm going to bump into the camera while I'm doing this? Okay. So before I hook my air chuck up, I can go ahead and get the rocker arm off. And as I'm taking these off, I have been checking, going quarter turn, half turn, 3/4 turn. See if that's what it was set at. And it looks like that's about right, so I'm going to go another quarter turn just to verify after I drop my socket. Yep, it was set at 3/4 turn lash. So far, all of them have been, and I've just been checking as I disassemble just to really be diligent. I'm going to set the nut and the rocker arm and the push rod in my magnetic tray. Then I'm going to pressurize the cylinder with air, maybe. I tried to turn the engine over a little bit, but I think it's going to hold. It'll kind of situate the engine where it wants to within reason. And sometimes it doesn't stay at top dead center, and that's okay. So I've got this cheapy O'Reilly's EverTouch. No, is that what that says? EverTouch is the brand of it. I've got this valve compressing tool, and it's not great. It has actually bent shortly upon starting this project, so I've had to take a zip tie and make a loop, and I slide the zip tie down over the valve spring all the way to the bottom, and then I get the tool in here and kind of wiggle around and see where the best position is going to be. Well, I've got it stuck. There we go. I've got it under one side there. I had to go get my little platform to stand on. If you're doing this project and you're under 5'10" and you're working on a car, you're probably going to want a little platform to stand on. Make it easier on you. I'm probably right in you guys' way, where you can't see anything right now. I'm starting to wonder if maybe on this particular cylinder I should start with a fresh zip tie. I'm going to do that. So I've been reusing this zip tie and fishing it up on there, and it works pretty darn good. But it's giving me trouble right now, so I'm going to start with a fresh zip tie. I've got a regular black zip tie here. I'm going to set it aside, kind of, somewhere where I can get to it easily. Okay, I'm going to take the tool, and as far down the valve spring as I can get, I'm going to get a bite on one side, under one of the coils on the valve spring, and come around and get a bite on the other side. And then I have to center, well, not as much center as I just have to position that U-shaped piece in the center so that it gets good engagement on top of the valve spring. And I don't know what the top piece there is called, the valve spring cup, maybe, is what this surface up here would be called. Washer? I don't know. So I take the zip tie and bring it through here. I go down below the cup thing on the top of the valve spring and tighten it up right under that cup. I don't want to go down too low. I'm getting it good and snug, and that is to keep those tabs from slipping out of the valve spring, because that's what was happening before. So then I take my ratchet on the top of the tool and start tightening it, and it seems to be holding well. And you saw the valve spring just move, so the tension's off the head surface. And I'm going to keep going and going. I'm going to stop real quick and cut this tail off so that it doesn't become an issue here in a minute when I'm trying to spin things around. So just keep tightening this. Nice and slow, trying not to move the tool too much because it will dislodge itself and come flying off of there and scare the crap out of me. I know from experience. So once it gets so tight that it feels like it's only going to just keep spinning that valve spring, that's where I've been stopping. So far that's been working pretty good. So I take a big punch and I tap right there. Nice and easy, not too hard. What I'm doing is trying to break the bond between the valve stem seal and the valve spring, or the valve stem, the top of the valve stem and the spring. As you see, it came loose there. When it comes loose and it drops down, it will reveal the keepers. I've been calling them keepers. I don't know if that's what they're actually called, but there's two halves. That's one half of it, and I'm using just a little pocket magnet type thing, and I just reach in there. There's the second half of it. I set those in my magnetic tray and drop the magnet, and I lift the whole assembly up off of there just like that. I've been able to get a lot of these valve seals off by hand just like that. Now this engine is burning oil, but I'm not convinced that these seals are bad. They still are nice and rubbery. They're not too dry, but I'm changing them anyway, just to cover my rear and see if it makes a difference. Right here I've got the new seal. In the package with all the new seals will come this little plastic sleeve with a ledge on top so that it can't slide down too far. That slides down over that. And I take my new valve seal and wiggle it and press until it goes down, and it'll stop first, and then I put tension on it and it goes down one more thud, and that's where it seats. And I take this tube off. Well, if the tube doesn't get stuck. Okay. The tube is currently stuck, and that's the first time it has gotten stuck through this whole project. So I'm taking my channel locks to get that tube off of there. That's the first time that's gotten stuck, and of course it would be when I'm filming. So, after the new seal is on, slide the valve spring back down over it, and then you got this little O-ring, and it goes on top of the valve stem right here. I work it down over the top of the valve stem carefully. I press it down with my fingers to the first notch, and then I can get my fingernails in there just a little bit and press it past the first groove on the valve stem, down in there where you can't see it. And then I press down on the spring a little bit and the whole tool, and I take a pick that's got a almost 80 degree turn or angle on it, and I just poke that O-ring around in a circle, making sure that it jumped down onto that second notch on the valve stem, and it did, no problem. I've had pretty good luck so far. Those have been dropping right down on there nice and easy and not giving me too much trouble. So then I take this half of the keeper, which I still don't know that keeper is the right name for it, and I put it in one side. And I take the other half of it and get my hands in front of the camera where you guys can't see anything and drop it down on the other side, just like that. Then I pull the whole tool and spring up to make those keepers stay nice and snug. And I hold them up while I get my ratchet and loosen the tool. Once that's loose, I loosen it up the rest of the way by hand a little bit, and then I press that zip tie down till it lets go of the tool. Get the tool out from the valve spring, take it out, set it aside, and I disconnect the air hose, get the zip tie up off of here. How many times have I bumped into the camera so far? Take the push rod and put it back into its designated lifter. Take the rocker arm, slide it down on there, and the lock nut. Of course, everything's covered in oil, so it's really, really easy to hold on to all these items. But that's good. That means the engine's oiling. Okay. Get my socket. I'm going to tighten that down. Make sure the push rod stayed seated in the lifter. Tighten this down. And I start to feel the resistance of it being a lock nut. Keep going for a little ways. And then I stop and check to see if it's loose. Just keep tightening it and checking it until it's just tight. I'm going to give it another tiny bit. Now it's tight. Now that is set at 0 lash, is what that's called. So I'm going to move on to the exhaust valve, and I'm going to do this one in real time without talking to you guys, and just do my thing and mess up the camera position completely and just fully wonkify it. Okay, as I was saying, I'm going to do this one in real time without talking to you guys. Zip tie cut me, so that's why I'm bleeding. he left that little plastic tube on. You can't do that. Now, without the little plastic tube, that goes on much easier. When you have a hydraulic lifter cam, a flat tap, hydraulic flat tappet camshaft, you want to have preload on your lifters. Don't get dizzy while I'm shaking you guys all over the place. So now that there's no air compressing the valves up to start come rushing out, I'm gonna clock my ratchet at straight ahead of me and go quarter turn, back another quarter turn, so that's half, another quarter turn, so that's 3/4. Math. I'm gonna do the same thing here, quarter turn, half, 3/4. So all these rockers are snugged down to 3/4 turn of valve lash, and I'm hoping that there's no valve train noise when we put it back together. There shouldn't be, but there's always the chance that I caught the lifter way up at the top or the bottom or something and got something out of adjustment. But for all intents and purposes, 3/4 turn should get the job done. If it doesn't, then I'll fix it. unhook the battery charger, and go for a little ride. All right, you guys can't see nothing, but I'm backing out of my driveway, and I'm very, very nervous. But I think the first drive after having your vehicle apart is pretty nerve-wracking, even if you know it is just routine maintenance type of things that you're doing. I'm gonna get out on the highway and let you guys know how I get along. Well, I've been on the highway for about 5 minutes now, and nothing notable so far. It makes all the same noises that it made before. Granted, I haven't driven it in a while and it feels weird. I forgot how much of a unit this thing is. Oh my gosh, I love driving this car. If I had more gas, I would just keep going, not even turn around and call the dog sitter. I got some Berrymans to dump in the gas tank to clean the combustion chambers. I think I've covered 25 miles so far. But it's doing great. Just always reminding me this car's an absolute unit. I wasn't gonna bother having the camera face me because you can't see me anyway. So I just wanted to say that I left AutoZone and went and filled the gas tank up with fresh gas and dumped a can of Berryman's fuel injector and fuel system cleaner in there. And I'm on my way home. The car's doing great. Hoping that Berryman's will do some cleaning. And got quite a bit of driving to do this weekend actually, and it's currently Friday night. So tomorrow and Sunday both, I've got a pretty substantial amount of driving to do. So I'm just gonna keep an eye on my smoke screen behind me and hope that it decreases. And on this tank it probably won't because of the Berryman's in there. Well, I don't know, it's six of one, half a dozen of the other. It might be smoking because it's still burning oil, or it's definitely smoking because that Berryman's is cleaning the combustion chambers and they've been kind of gummed with oil for a little while. So it may take a while to get that cleaning done. But either way, car's doing great, running great. Just, oh my gosh, I love driving this car so much. Well, I'm sitting down at the computer to do some editing, and I just remembered, because I'm the world's greatest YouTuber ever, I didn't film an outro for this video. So it's about 2.5 weeks later, and I have ran 3 full tanks of fuel through the Malibu. So I've been doing some serious driving, and I can't tell yet if it's smoking less than it was, but maybe by the next time I make an episode about the Malibu, I'll kind of have a review on if it's still burning oil or not. But moral of the story is, it's back to the way it was, just good old reliable Mally. I just went for a run, that's why I'm winded. So, that being said, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends and your family and anybody that you know that's into cars, trucks, car shows, road trips, camping, four-wheeling stuff, mowing content, kayaking, hiking, motorcycle stuff, engine tech stuff. I just think that there's something for everybody on my channel. So make sure you go subscribe. Thank you for watching. That's it.